Being able to write 40K every month is a system. It's you figuring out exactly what you need to do, how many leads you need to work, and how consistently you need to work them. In this video, I'm going to break it down how you can consistently write $40,000 per month off 100 fresh, high intent leads. My name's Trey. I run a company called Agent Lead Lab. We've been able to help 550 agents hit that 40K mark. And on this channel, that's all we focus on is agents hitting 40K and agency owners scaling. So without further ado, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and let's hop right into the video. We are back again with another video. I'm feeling a lot better. For those of you all who have been watching me more consistently, my goal is to post something every day and thoughts of just providing value, really. Nothing too crazy from it. Been having actually some people hit me up and I don't even have many views, which is pretty cool. So we're just going to keep doing this and we'll see what happens. So essentially today I want to talk about how you can write 40K off 100 fresh leads. Now, first of all, before we do anything, let's talk about lead types. Okay. I'm a huge proponent of this. Different lead types. You got final expense, which can also be considered vet. My bad. You guys know my thing's not that great, right? But I'm a big on demographics. Okay. So essentially you're talking like 50 to 85 plus year olds. Okay, we're going to go through how you can do it off of those leads. We're going to talk about how you can do it off mortgage protection, right? Or / like homeowners, because you can have like niched, right? Where you can have like vet mortgage protection, and there's all these different things that you can do. You can kind of find these little nuanced pockets, but it's more or less about, once again, demographics. So for this, we're looking like 30 to 70 year olds, and I have other videos breaking down like how you should talk and sell to these people. And then the one after that is going to be more advanced market, right? Or IUL or whole life. I'm not here to argue about what's better. Okay, that's not really the point, but you guys get it, right? These are going to be people anywhere from like 20 all the way up to like 60. Okay, and those are really going to be your three main categories. So let's start there and let's hammer in on that. So when you're trying to write 40K off 100 fresh high intent leads, if you're starting with, let's start with advanced market. We'll work our way backwards. So if you're doing advanced market, it's really simple. You really don't need more than like 3 or 4 sales, y'all, which means that if you get 100 leads and you sell 3 or 4, you have to be pretty god awful if they're high intent, right? So with that being said, the easiest way to look at it is let's break it down into a smaller number. So like packs of leads, because you're never going to buy 100 leads at once. So how do we think and frame our mind to put ourselves in the best position to be successful? It's simply in us understanding how to work the leads properly. So when you get your leads, right, they're going to drip in, because if they're real fresh, high intent leads, they're going to literally come in, or they're going to come in, day by or time, basically they're going to fill your lead order. And it's typically, 20, 30 leads. We're just going to call it 25 leads. So if you do 25, you essentially have 4 weeks to make 40K off of 100 fresh leads. Okay. So if I get 100 leads, if I get 25 leads, I apologize. I should be looking in the advanced market client IUL to close 2, maybe 3 deals. People are like, whoa, why can I not close more? Understand that when we talk about making money in these industries and we talk about having 100 leads, you have to think about what was the input output. A lot of people are like, well, it's the leads and it should be this. No. Business is about logic, right? If I only spent, let's say you buy 8 IUL leads, aged IUL leads, right? And the IUL lead costs $10 a piece and you buy 100 of them. You spent $1,000. It's less about how many leads you got and how much the lead was. And it's less about how many leads you got. And it's more about how much you spent for the lead, and the ROI margins. They're relative. Because typically, if you're the marketer, right, somebody who's marketing to you, you're buying leads at a cost that is going to be based off of the inherent value of the lead. So if it's a $2 lead, a $5 lead, a $10 lead, it has a reason it's like that, right? Now they're in brackets. We talked about this in great length. You've got $0 to $10 is like an aged lead. They're all relatively the same. Some people want to sell them for more. Some people want to sell them for less. Then you've got what we call like middle of the ground. So 10 to about $25, right? These are going to be your general Facebook autofill form leads, etc. And then you've got 25 to 28 plus is going to be, where you get into your higher intent digital leads. And then when you go to transfers and you start talking about, mailers, you're talking 45 to like $100, right? 150, depending on where you go, if you're in like a high intent transfer or whatever. And you have to understand input output before you can understand these numbers. It is super important, right? It's like input output is this, okay? So if I put in, right, $1,000, a lot of people are like, wow, I spent $1,000 on leads and I got 25 leads and I thought I was supposed to make 50K because I got 25 leads, so I should close like 10 deals. It's like, No, that it doesn't work like that, right? You spent $1,000, you got how many leads? Then if I put 1,000 in, what's realistic for me to pull out? Now, in our industry, it's very unique, right? Because we make annual premium higher. So let's just say you put $1,000 in, right? And we'll go into output in a second. But what is output? Okay, there's a few things. It's going to be lead type plus the actual intent plus the inherent friction of lead. Okay, you're like, what does that mean? Lead type, we've already broke that down. Okay, then you talk about intent. Intent means when I call the person, how intentful are they in remembering what it is and they're ready to move forward without me having to use my words to do anything, right? So a higher intent lead just means that that person is more or less interested in what you have to offer the moment that you get in contact with them. If you have to create intent, that's not a high intent lead. You had to create it. Really good sales individuals can create intent. That's why they can take older leads and make a high ROI. Some people struggle with that, right? So intent is the next thing. And then the last thing is inherent friction of lead. Now, when I say friction, godly friction of lead. Well, it's bad sometimes when I type. Inherent friction of lead. Now, when I say friction, we have this term in the marketing space that basically just means how difficult are we making it for a client to book a call, to become a lead, or to opt in? The more difficult that it is, it typically shows you the intent. It's not always true, though, that I separate them, because you can have leads with really good marketing on the front end with not a lot of friction and still have a whole lot of inherent intent. There's also places where just based off of who you're targeting, you don't need to ask a lot of questions. You could be running ads for, athletes who are looking to go Division 1. You don't need to ask 50,000 questions to make it a more intentful lead. Versus if you're doing vets, which everybody and their mom is doing, then you have to ask a bunch of questions, or you have to find a unique mechanism or way to get your clients in the door, because otherwise you're just like everybody else. So how do you differentiate yourself, right? But that's not always based off of just the friction of the lead, because you could be like everybody else. And if your ads look the same, the intent's not relatively different because you don't have any inherent friction. You don't have any inherent friction that separates you, right? You're like, oh, I'm just gonna go in here and I'm gonna just do name, email, phone number, stay. It's like, yeah, you're cooked. But if you do something where you're in an area where the intent is relatively lower based off of the clientele, because there's so many people marketing to them, then you have to find inherent friction in them opting in or becoming a lead, right? It's like coaching, consulting, lead gen. People that want to work with me, they're like, well, what makes you different? I'm like, well, if I just put name, email, phone number, everybody booked a call, I'd have no idea. Now what I can do, because there's millions of agents who say, hey, I want to build a system, I want to do all this other stuff. When you start asking pre-qualifying questions, you make them answer open-ended questions. You make it difficult for somebody to book. It shows the intent, because if they don't want it, they won't do it. There's no point in them doing it. Like, okay, I'm out. This is a waste of my time. Right? So we want to make sure that we can create intent as needed. But the input output also determines that. Right? Now, you're probably like, where are you going with this? So let's go up, right? This is what determines the output. So I put $1,000 in, right? Realistically, what we see in the industry is you get about a 4 to 8x return on investment. That's what we have, no matter what you put in. So if you put $200 into leads, you're gonna see a 4 to 8x return on investment. Of that is $800 like in your pocket. I'm not a huge AP guy because that doesn't matter. 8x is gonna be $3,200. Sorry, 8x is going to be $1,600, right? If you put in $200. So $1,600 into your pocket at the end of all of it. That's the average. If you're really, really, really good, you'll do a lot more than that. But that is the relative average, okay? So if we're probably like, why are you talking about this? I go back to the analogy I was talking about with 25 leads, right? So if you got 25 leads, what you're looking at is you're gonna say, okay, with those 25 leads, right? I spent, let's just call it $50 a lead, so $1,250, right? For the leads. Right? So that's my input. Okay. And they're high intent, IUL/annuity. Okay. And then you figure out what is typically going to be my ROI off of a deal. And then that is how many deals that you can expect to close. Because it still has to be relative to the cost to acquire a client. Like, you're not going to acquire an IUL or an annuity client for like $100. That's just unrealistic. And then if that's your question, it's like, okay, how much do you think it costs me to get an annuity client? Right? Or like an IUL client. Like if an IUL client is going to pay me X, how much do you think it costs me to get that? Like you have to be realistic because it's just numbers at the end of the day. It's so people get so emotional about like, oh, I bought 25 leads and I didn't close 5 of them. It's like, dude, what kind of leads did you buy? What are you working? What are your expectations? Okay, so if you spend 1250 and you close 2 deals, you divide 1250 divided by 2. My math's not great. Let's just call it 625, I think it is. Yeah, 625. So you're spending $625 for you to acquire a client. If you close a client for $2,000, that's good. You put 625 in, you pulled out $2,000. That's a great bet. You just keep doing that. That's the problem. People can't conceptually look at ROI numbers properly because the game has messed us up to think that all these big numbers matter when they don't. It's about what do you actually have in your pocket. And when you start realizing that, you don't try to squeeze the limit, you don't try to force people into things they don't want, you actually make sales that stick. People have the game all wrong. So if I put $1,250 in, if I think I'm going to try to close, if I put $1,250 into annuity, what is my expectation? I can close one client? Because here's the other way to think about it. If you spend $1,250 on ads, that's $100, it's $125 a day for only 10 days. So if you ran annuity leads for 10 days, you'd be upset if you closed one person. No. And it's not even realistic that you probably would close one person in the first 10 days. Some people are like, well, I got the leads and I haven't closed by. It's like, there's so many more factors that go into it, right? So you have to look at the factors. Okay. And I'm sorry this is all over the place. Maybe I'll get better at organizing this as we keep doing these, but I'm just writing my thoughts down, right? So it's cost to acquire a client times time, right? Or plus time, however you want to look at it. Okay. So what that essentially means is, like, if the cost to acquire a client is $1,500, but how long did it take me to do that? Because an annuity lease is going to take longer. So you can't be upset if it doesn't happen like that. Same thing with IV. People are like, well, yeah, I spent 25. It's like, okay, unless your sales process is really fast, you have to be okay with understanding that that is how it works. But when you look at cost to acquire a client, right? And you say, hey, 2 sales would mean 625 CAC. And if my actual output, right, meant that I got, let's say 2 clients, let's say our average annual premium or average is 3K. So I made 6K. Like, that's not bad. I made a 10X ROI. But people can't look at it like that because it's like, oh, I got 25 leads and I only sold 2. It's like, these suck. It's like, no, you're looking at it wrong. And then when you do go to get cheaper leads that aren't as good and you're not working them properly, you look at it from the wrong frame. You just look at it from the wrong frame. Now, here's the thing that we're not looking at, and we're only on advanced market. It's a longer video, y'all. So we're only talking about advanced market right now. Okay. When you start looking at other industries, okay, and you also start compounding, I said 100 leads at the beginning of the video. So 100. So if you do that 4 times, so you take 4 times 6 is 24,000. You're like, yo, Trey, where are you getting the rest of the money? Here's the thing that we're not understanding. When we get down here, I'm going to talk about how you're going to have the compounding effect of this working over a month time span, because people don't think properly. They think in regards to like, I'm gonna do this for a week, I'm gonna do this for one. Like, you have to think like a business owner. Business owners don't say, oh, it's not working, I'm gonna turn it off. You'll never be successful in anything because you have no patience, you have no understanding of how things work. You're very ignorant to the process. Like, if you're not ignorant to the process, you can understand like, okay, cool, this is how it should work for me. Right? So that's advanced market, IUL. Okay. Now let's talk about mortgage protection. Okay. So I'm going to go build another one. I'll come back up here. So this. So let's go mortgage protection. Okay. So mortgage protection, keep it super simple, right? When you talk about the lead type, you're going to get a lot quicker payouts. So these number, right? These same factors. So factors, acquire a client, plus the time, the other factor, which is inherently the input output. And we're just gonna keep the numbers the same for the simplicity of it, right? So input for mortgage, let's just call it, another 1250. I'm just gonna keep it simple, 1250, right? It's an output specifically. Now we're gonna look at what are the factors here. So lead type is mortgage protection. Intent, relatively intentful, because a lot of people that are homeowners need to cover their mortgage. And because mortgage protection to me is the second, I would say, highest intent behind an IUL or annuity, not necessarily because they're better, but because with an IUL or annuity, people are very open to the conversation, because even if they have something, if it talks about making them more money, it's like a B2B offer, they're more open to hearing it. It doesn't necessarily inherently mean that you're going to close more, though. That's the thing. The intent may be higher, but it does not equate. Like, intent doesn't necessarily equate to you closing more. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make another video on that. I just found my video for tomorrow. So yeah, intent doesn't inherently mean that you're just going to close more. Like, it doesn't work like that. If you think that it does, you completely misunderstand what the idea of intent is, right? Like, so mortgage protection may not have the highest intent, but you'll close more. And sometimes, truthfully, your cost to acquire a client can be lower and your numbers can be a little bit higher, because the problems that you have to solve for mortgage protection clients are endless. When you're working with somebody who's looking for an IUL or a whole life plan, or to basically leverage life insurance as a tax-free retirement vehicle, it's a longer process, number one. It's also very like, oh, I want to talk about it, but I may not be ready to move forward because I may already have something, or I'm just looking. Versus you can push on a lot of pain when you deal with somebody in the mortgage protection space, because you inherently they need it, right? Like, if they're open to having the conversation, they need it. Are they more open in IUL? Yes. That's why you can call older IUL leads and still crush on them, because people are always interested in learning how to leverage life insurance or make more money. Like, who's not going to be like, yeah, you think you can kind of help me? I'll hear more, but that doesn't mean that you're going to close more, right? And I'll talk more about that on the video I'm going to do tomorrow. But understand that the inherent friction of the lead, right? So you're dealing with a lead that is also going to have some high friction as well, right? It could be OTP, verify, etc. So then we go down and we understand, like, all right, so what are the factors? If I put in 1250, right? And then you look at, let's say the cost to acquire clients is a little bit lower. Let's say you get 3 sales, right? So I don't have the best math. So let me just pull my phone out real quick. 1250 divided by 3. So $416, right? So $416 is the cost to acquire a client. My bad. That's not the output. Right? So $416 the cost to acquire a client, right? And let's say I close 3 deals. Average annual premium is $2,500. So 2.5K times 3, right? It'd be $7,500 off a batch of leads. Now that's like a really good case scenario, right? But I just put 1,200 in and I pulled out 7,500. Stop looking at it from like, oh, I got 25 leads, I only closed 3. That's the improper way to look at it. It's money. You get emotional when you start looking at like, oh, it's just like, okay, how much did I spend? What did I get out? Okay, that makes more sense. I'm willing to do that. I'll just keep doubling down on that. It's simple. Like, you just got to make it simple. So if your cost to acquire a client is $416, then the question you got to ask yourself is like, why don't you just spend more? Like, so many people look at it wrong and they're like, well, I'm going to try to get this cost super low. And it's like, yeah, you could do that. But like, let's say you close 4, like 1,250 divided by 4. I mean, yeah, that's 312, but that's literally an extra $100. Like, you're going to try to squeeze everything out, stress yourself, probably trying to close people into packages they don't need. And see, here's the thing that people don't understand. When you're trying to decrease your cost to acquire a client, you will sacrifice things sometimes. Unless you, meaning you're the person doing the marketing, like somebody like me and my partners, I can decrease their cost to acquire a client because I can manipulate factors. You as an agent, you cannot manipulate factors. You're buying leads. Your manipulated factor is you trying to get a client to buy, which is not a good manipulation factor because it's going to charge back. So it makes 0 sense for you to even invest your time, effort, and energy into doing that. You'd be better off investing your time, effort, and energy into actually buying more leads to close. Like, it just makes sense. And it is funny because it's like, if you go to any other industry, people are like, me and my mentor talk about this. And he's like, why don't people just spend more? And then I'm like, because they don't understand business. Like, they don't get the inherent benefit of input output. Like, they don't understand it. And I hope if you're watching my channel, like, you get it, because this is something that I'm super big on, because it's important for you to know your numbers. Like, if you understand this, you feel way more like, I used to never do this. Then when I looked at this, I was like, yo, I can be way more aggressive in how I want to scale, because I take all the emotion out and I just look at the numbers for what they are, right? And then the last one is filing expense VAT. I don't really love filing expense VAT for the numbers, but I'm going to go through it for the sake of it, right? Because when you look at filing expense or VAT, or like you just look at an older demographic, right? So let's go through these again. And then once again, the cost to acquire cost to acquire a client plus the time is super quick. So it's like faster turnaround, right? Because you get paid out with these policies quicker. So this is why I'm a huge mortgage protection fan. You push hard on the pain, right? The intent is still high, but it's not the highest. Like it's still relatively high. You get a lot of data. You can ask a lot of first. You can push there, and then you can also push on the call. You get his or her policies. They're very sticky. A lot of agents can't sell mortgage protection. So if you get good at it, the likelihood of people coming behind you and rewriting business is absolutely low. The thing about IULs, and definitely not annuities because people don't know how to do that, but definitely IULs, I love them. The problem is that you get an agent who has no idea what he's saying. He gets them on the phone and sell them a dream, and they'll buy it, right? You get somebody on the phone, and because they can't attach that to any particular outcome. They can just get their paperwork, and unless they really go in and look at it, which some people do, and they're like, well, this isn't what you told me, then they'll charge back. But a lot of times people will literally just be like, yo, actually, I'm gonna just go ahead and you get set up with this, it's gonna have this much, you're gonna get this much in return. So they get sold a dream for them to get quick cash, but in reality, it doesn't actually benefit the client. And then they end up canceling, or another agent comes behind you and just like cuts you on the price. And then finally spends the same thing, right? Which we'll go over in a second. But with mortgage protection, you have to actually learn how to sell. And because you have to learn how to sell, you decrease the likelihood that people can come behind you and like rewrite your business. Because if they don't know how to write equity protection, they don't know how to write it. It's a skill. So if you don't know how to do it, you won't ever get into mortgage. Why people skip from life because they're like, okay, I'd rather just go sell a dream than learn a skill. It's like, dude, if you could learn a skill, you'll make way more money because nobody knows how to do it. And it's super sticky business. And the people that do, they make a killing of it and they just stay there because when you do mortgage, you can sell everything. That's the thing about mortgage protection. Because you're targeting homeowners, you can still sell IULs. You could sell final expense. You can literally sell everything that you need in one bucket. And then from that one bucket, you'll be able to expand into what they need, right? So you go in, you attack a pain point. Hey, you're a homeowner. You need to protect the mortgage and the equity in your home. Cool. Hey, like, do you have anything else that works like life insurance? Annuity. Do you have your final expense? Extra premium on top, right? Do you want to learn how to invest as well? Yeah. So one vehicle opens other. You can't go to a final expense client and be like, yeah, I mean, you can tell them that they're not going to get approved. You go to an IUL client, they probably already have it. Right? So it's like you kind of lose. This is the opportunity for you to go in, kind of build your whole portfolio around them, get sticky business, and really, be the agent for them. So let's go into this. Let's just keep it super simple. So factors, right? Cost to acquire a client plus time, right? Then you have my bad. What's the next thing? Lead type. So we'll go through it real quick. So lead type, very simple. Final expense, 50 to 85-year-olds. Intent is not as high because there's 1,000,001 people and it's such a simple setup to do. And then inherent friction in the lead, you have to add a lot of friction, but even then it doesn't necessarily relatively change the intent. But your cost to acquire clients is going to be like super low. So if you buy like a 25 pack of leads, like you can still kind of expect to close. You can close probably 3, maybe 4 of them. Let's just say you close 3 of them. And the average, right, pack of leads. So input is going to be for this. Like sometimes you can get 25 leads for $500, $800. But for simplicity's sake, let's just call it, $800. Or we'll call it, $500 for simplicity's sake, right? Let's say you close 3 deals, 500 divided by 3. So $166 cost to acquire a client. Really simple, right? ROI, let's say average is $800 in premium. So if you close 3 of them, right? 3 times 800 is 2,400, right? So you put in 5, you get out 2,400. And this is the thing, like with vets and with final expense, the numbers look pretty on paper, but in reality, people aren't really getting paid out that much. So a lot of guaranteed issue, a lot of stuff behind closed doors. That's not always like the most sexy. And this is why I don't necessarily love it. And yes, the cost to acquire a client, the time is absolutely the fastest. But you'll see here in a second why you can make 40K doing this off 100 leads, but you're going to have to dog. Like you're going to have to really dog. And it's going to be a stressor. Okay. Next thing, and this is going to be working the leads properly. So I'll just put a 2 here. By the way, guys, like if you guys don't notice, I freestyle these. This is not like scripted, recorded, anything. I'm just letting you guys know what works and how we kind of go through things. So working leads properly is a skill set. you're going to get your first 25. You'll probably work them really well. You'll get your next 25. You'll work them really well. And then you may call your 25. You get your third 25. You probably won't call your first 25. You'll call your second. And you get your last 25. You probably won't call all three. You'll think that you've exhausted them because you've called them a lot. Like they've never picked up. They never picked up. Here's the thing. When you get 100 leads a month, the real problem is not inherently in what you close on the front end. It's what you close on the back end. So when I go back up and I look at all these numbers, right? So if you close $2,400 in order to make 40K, you have to close 20 clients. And you're like, dang, that's kind of a lot. And it's like, yes, but there's a few factors that go into each of these numbers, okay? So final expense, it's going to be pretty hard for you to get 40K off 100 leads. It's probably not going to happen. I'm going to be just like super transparent. It just probably won't happen. Mortgage protection, it will happen. IUL, it will definitely happen. And you're like, well, how? It's like, okay, so if I just work my 25 leads only, I'm going to close 7.5 times 4. Let's just say it is 25. That's 30K. There is 1,000%, because remember, you worked your 25. You don't go back until you get your next 25. And then you keep going back. And then you finish at the end of the month. And every week, you should add an extra policy to what you're writing, which if we do our numbers correctly, right, is about $2,500. So if you add $2,500 every week, because you're going back and you're squeezing out one more policy from that previous batch. So you work 25, you made your sales, boom, you come back, you do it again. You make another sale. So it compounds, right? This is the part I'm talking about, compounding effect. I'm going to get into it with the CRM system, but it's still the same even if you don't have a CRM. What you're going to do is every week you go back and work to squeeze one more policy out of the week before pack. Now, people are probably like, what doesn't even make sense? The reason why that makes sense is because it's a sales cycle. Yes, you bought 25 leads, but what you don't understand is that because you bought 25 leads, you now have 50. You don't have 25. So your numbers are really based off of 50, right? And if you reverse engineer the numbers based off of 50, you will squeeze out one more deal. You do the same thing. Remember, because 25 of them are fresh, right? And theoretically, it's only like 23 you're gonna have a bad number. So you take all the leads you have, right? Which typically, let's say you worked all of you booked enough appointments, etc. You're only left with like 10 that just didn't pick up, right? So now you have 35. You do those same numbers based off 35. And then you have 40, 10 plus 25 is 35. You have 35. I apologize. You have 35 leads. And then the week after that, you're going to have whatever the next number is, 45. 45 leads, right? Or you guys get the point. Essentially, every week, you're going to work on the pack that you had before minus the number that you had. So let's say you had 25 leads originally, right? And then after week 1, you minus the 2 sales, because we used 2 sales. I want to make sure we're using the right numbers across the board. Boop, 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 boop. 3 sales. Apologize. 3 sales. Minus 3 sales, right? And that is going to equal 22 leads, right? And let's say those 22 leads, you minus, let's say, 6 appointments. So now you have 18 leads, right? And then you minus, so you're going to go, my bad, 18 leads minus, let's call it 5, just like truly not interested. So it's going to be 13 leads. And then you take that 13 and then you just subtract, let's just call it 3 if you're doing verifies, like non-working, because they're all still the same, non-working or straight to voicemail leads, right? So it leaves you with 10 leads. Okay, then you're gonna take those 10 leads plus the 25 fresh leads, and that's gonna give you a total of 35 leads. And now you're gonna do the same math on what it is, and based off of what that is, because you now have 10 more leads, what are you probably gonna do? You're gonna close one more deal. And then if you close that one more deal, that now means that you're going to have an extra $2,500. 2,500 times 4 is going to give you 10K. That's how you get to 40. It always comes back to 40. That's why we hit 40 with our agents. We know exactly what to do. We know all the numbers. We've been doing this for a long, long, long time. Okay. Relatively long, 3.5 years. Okay. And we've helped 550 people do it. And that's because we follow simple formulas and process. Formula, process. You work the leads that come in, you do the same thing. Now, annuity and IU, I've already talked about this. If you only close one deal, it doesn't matter because you close one deal and the average deal is like 5K, 7K into your pocket. Let's just say it's 7 times 4, you get the same number. So it all inherently works together. And a lot of times it's a lot higher than that, right? If you're closing IULs, it'll be even higher than that. So 6K, you might write more, but you all get the point. Here's the best thing about what I'm explaining though, is working the leads. I'm not going to talk about like dialing and stuff. I mean, you guys know, triple dial, call them as many times as you can. I'm talking about at the end of that week, you just throw those 10 in and treat them like nothing happened and just keep working them. You will squeeze an extra lead out. Most people don't do that. They finish with their leads and they're like, oh yeah, I'm done with these. Like most people go buy age leads. I'm like, dude, you know you have your own age leads? Like, you know, like your leads that just never picked up are age leads. You know that those same leads that you're buying from other people, somebody else said the same thing you're saying about your leads right now. But instead of you treating it like they're new age leads, you just treat them like, oh, those are my old leads. I'm like, that makes zero sense. Why don't you just focus on figuring out which ones are your, so that's super important. The last thing is going to be the CRM, the backend system in terms of a compounding effect. So to expedite what I just explained, you get a CRM, okay? Because what the CRM does is it'll just send like drip sequence, reminders, SMS, emails, AI chat, like everything that you can kind of imagine. It's going to just pump that and do the work for you. Because then at that point, you're not really worried about like, oh, okay, cool. Like I have to do this, I have to do this. And you're like, no, I mean, pretty straightforward. You have to let the AI do its thing. So the AI is going to actually come in, book the appointment, follow up the client. It's going to keep texting them on a 30-day sequence. It's going to follow up with them for you. And they'll just opt out if they're not interested. You manually working and calling them along with the CRM backend system, you're definitely going to pull out 40K. Some people pull out 50 because then they're working. Because then what happens is like you don't know how many leads that you're just missing because you're texting them at the wrong time, right? Or you don't get to them quick enough because you don't have a system. So you wait. You think 5 minutes is the difference. It's like, yeah, an hour. But here's the thing. If you just call people at different times and you like take all the emotion out, you'll typically get people to pick up the phone and you'll have more pleasant conversations. Genuinely, like you'll just have much better conversations overall. And that is more or less like the most important thing that you can do when trying to hit 40K off 100 leads. And that's how you do it, right? Now, once again, final expense, you're not going to do it. I mean, like I've had a few people do it off 100 leads. You're going to need more leads than that for final expense. But mortgage and IUL, definitely annuity. Yeah, you'll hit 40K. You'll write 40K. As long as you work the leads properly. If you just let them sit there, you don't contact people fast enough, you don't do all the basics that are necessary. And like, I'm not going to spend all time doing that, but going through that. But if you don't do the basics, yeah, you're going to struggle. So I hope this video was useful. I just try to record these, y'all, to let you guys know my thoughts, how we help people, what we do. It's not really rocket science. The thing about everything I explained is you have to do it. Like, this isn't like oh man, watch this YouTube video. And like, you have to go out and do this stuff. Like, if you don't do it, nothing's going to change. If you don't work the leads properly, it's not going to change. So it doesn't really matter. And we help people do it all the time. It's like, we can go to our website, you can check out and see exactly what our testimonials are, see the people we work with. Actually, I just thought about something. I'm actually going to do YouTube videos of like case studies. I'm going to start actually showing you guys our clients, because I feel like some of you all may not know, like, oh, like, yeah, he's just talking. It's like, no, I'm actually going to show you our people that we've worked with and like what they do. Like, I'm going to break down how they work and how they make money with us. I'm just going to start pulling up screenshots and like give you their story and tell you like, yo, this is this person. This is exactly what they do. This is how they do it. This is how they work. This is when they worked with us. This is where they started. This is where they're at. Like, I'm going to give you guys the full sauce of what it really takes to make money. Right? Because if you don't know that, it's like, okay, cool. I'm really doing you all a disservice. So as always, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all tomorrow in another video. Appreciate you.